You see a lot of people concerned that they might be too old, that it would be a waste of money, saying, I'm scared to death at my age to go through this, but I'm just saying I'm the biggest wimp I know. And here I am 4.5 years later.
You might have heard you're too old to get dental implants, that it's too risky at your age, recovery will be too difficult, or that you won't have long enough to enjoy the benefits anyway.
But what if that's not true?
I'm here with Duncan, who got dental implants later in life, to break down the 3 biggest fears people have about doing this at an older age, and you might be surprised what he discovered. All right, Duncan, let's get into it. The first big fear that people have about age and getting dental implants is this idea that once you hit a certain number, you might not even qualify to get it done. So let me first ask you, how old were you when you decided to do this?
I was 68 years old.
Did age ever come up? Did it affect whether you would be a candidate? Can you kind of walk me through that?
It never came up. I never imagined I was going to be too old for this. I think for a lot of us as we age, we put our focus and attention on our kids and grandkids, and we pretty well dismiss any concerns medically about us because that's just our job as a parent and a grandparent. And so when all of a sudden something happens in my case, in my life, um, I just dismiss it because I'm not worthy of that. And I think that's part of the human condition, that I'll just give it to the kids and be okay. And I think that's a sad commentary to have rolling around in your head. I think that's the way older folks mask their fear, because if I can mask it with wanting to help others, then I don't feel so bad, rather than coming out and saying, I'm scared to death at my age to go through this. And so I think it's something we learn as we age, quite frankly.
Age is not really a factor to becoming a candidate. You said they never brought it up at your appointment, that wasn't a concern for them. So how did you find out if you did qualify? What factors were assessed for you?
I sat down, the doctor looked at my teeth and the scans they did on my mouth, and she just blared out, "You're good. Let's do it." And again, I had 24 teeth in my mouth at that time. They were just in terrible shape. And her response was, frankly, immediate after she saw all the information she needed to make a decision.
So you took some scans, which I'm assuming probably looking at your bone quality, and
Yep.
did they also ask you questions maybe about your health and stuff?
Yep. Asked me, and at the time, and I still am, I'm on blood thinners. And so she immediately said, here's what we'll do with that. And it was stop the blood thinner 2 days before and started back the day after. And I trusted this doctor so much after just meeting her, that if she just said, Duncan, go stand in the corner on your head and we got to look at something, I'd have done it. It just wasn't an issue. And I'm thankful that I had no fear in this. My fear was what the dentist said was a year and a half getting the same thing I had had for the last 40 years. And I call that the Band-Aid approach. And Nuvia, far beyond any Band-Aid approach, they do the full change.
And what was Nuvia promising timeline-wise in comparison to what this other dentist had told you?
I was going to have my teeth pulled, and in 24 hours, I was going to have full dental implants put in. Then I would come back in 2 weeks for an exam just to see if things were working correctly. And I would come back at 4 months to see that everything had come together the way it was supposed to. And quite frankly, I had no idea what that was. I was trusting the doctor and the staff to know what that was. And that's exactly what happened.
Wow. So at first, you were promised from another dentist a year and a half worth of work. Nuvia, you were promised 24 hours. And before we get into actually surgery and how it went, I do want to ask you one more question, though,
You bet.
about kind of going into this process. I'm curious, since age wasn't a factor of you becoming a candidate, have you seen others your age or even older getting this done or that were getting it done when you were getting it done?
Oh, yeah. Um, all you've got to do is go on the Smile Maker page and look at folks, and they'll tell you. Uh, they'll have long-standing conversations between us about how old were you, how old are you now, different things, and you see a lot of people concerned that they might be too old, that it would be a waste of money, and my thought, I've been in better health the last 4.5 years than I was the 4.5 years prior to this. So in 63 no, excuse me, when I was 63, I ran 3 Tough Mudders, which is an endurance course and things, and I just set my course to do that. So and I did it 3 times. So by 68 I was no longer able to do that because I kept getting skin infections. And and again, I had a stroke, but I didn't connect any dots. So I went in 5 years from a very healthy older man to a guy needing help. I'd have never in a million years thought the help I needed was remove all my teeth and give me implants, and that would change my life medically and physically as it did.
Wow. Yeah, so you were more so, like, kind of concerned of the opposite, like, "I probably should be getting something done, or else I'm not gonna, have this long rest of my life to live."
Right? And I never made the connection until I found out about Nuvia. I I'm like a lot of us, I just did whatever the dentist said.
Well, before we talk a little bit further about, your experience with the Nuvia team, I do wanna say for those watching and you're wondering, "Could I be a candidate for this? Do I qualify?" The first step is by taking our 60-second quiz that you can find in the description below. It's a simple way to learn, what could be possible for you. All right, Duncan, let's move on to the next big fear that people do have at an older age, which is, can I really handle surgery or the pain? So can you walk me through what that was actually like for you? Did you experience any pain during surgery? How did that go?
Well, the great news is when I went in and they put the anesthesia in my arm, the CRNA said, "Now count backwards from 99." 99 was all I remembered saying out loud. I was out at 98, and so I was completely out, um, uh, for and I have no idea how long, and I didn't care. Um, I was basically in deep sleep for the whole thing. I had absolutely no concept of what she did there. It just reinforced to me that I made the correct decision to go to Nuvia with my history of root canals and things. Uh, every root canal I ever had was more painful than having 24 teeth removed. And what I realize now is that's because Nubia chose and their way of doing things is anesthesia. They put me completely under. Most of us, if we've had any dental work, know the sounds in a dentist chair of the those kind of things. And not only does it hurt because they've already stuck your mouth a half dozen times with the needle, but then to hear that is just in my case, excruciating compared to the difference how Nuvia handled this. And
Yeah,
I'm telling you, that's one of the smartest things I ever heard was, "Let's just put these folks out so that we don't elevate their fear and anxiety in mid-process."
totally. I mean, I can imagine too, like you. you had been going back and forth to the dentist for so many years that,
Mhm.
going again you don't wanna be hearing any of that, you don't wanna be seeing any of that, so what I'm hearing is you were asleep, you were comfortably asleep, but what about when you woke up? How did you feel afterward? How did that part go?
When I woke up, I didn't feel anything other than a little drowsy. I woke up and they told me my wife was there to take me home. My wife drove us home. I don't remember her driving us home. I got out, I walked up into my front door. I remember that part. And then I don't remember anything. She had walked me upstairs, got me in bed, put ice packs on my face, and uh, I slept like a baby. Uh, and so it's like, again, I've had root canals where it was so painful that sleeping wasn't an option. In fact, I went to one of my dentists I went to, they were cleaning my teeth and it was so painful. I finally said to the woman, "You've got to stop. This hurts so bad. Just let me have a minute." She left the room, came back in with the dentist and said, "Okay, we'll give you a Valium so we can clean your teeth." And I looked at her and I said, "You're gonna give me a Valium?" "Yeah, so we can finish cleaning your teeth." I said, "Lady, there's not a chance again that you're gonna give me a medication to clean my teeth. It isn't gonna happen." And so again, the difference in dentistry and Nuvia, in my opinion, was very much like that.
Wow, that sounds like night and day. I mean, I
Oh,
can't even imagine that, like, cleaning your teeth was super painful. Oh my goodness. And then versus going through and having 24 teeth pulled and you're like, "Uh, eh."
not a problem. Came back the next day, got my teeth. It's like, and I'm not a real curious person. If I believe in you, my curiosity doesn't have to continue to be examined. Um, and so when I walked in the door that day to first meet the Nubia staff, I was already convinced I'd made a correct decision. And what I had was I had that validated step by step. And that's what I love about Nubia is when you first walk in, they make you part of their family. And I didn't go in saying, "Listen, people, here's how you've got to do blah, blah, blah." I just felt so welcomed and so at home. It took away any anxiety I could have had because these are folks I trusted.
Wow. That goes a long, long way, I'm sure, throughout every part of the process as well. So when you did go back in the next day though, were you like to get your teeth,
Mhm.
were you uncomfortable then at all, or was that part painful for you?
No, no, they just put me in a chair and said, "All right, lean you back a little bit." Wasn't painful, wasn't anything. And I did feel pressure, and what I realized was that was hooking my implants, my teeth to the implants they'd already put in my mouth. And I thought, "Wow, these are so tight. That's so cool." Because the little bit that I thought was, no one has tight dentures. Dentures are never tight, even when you glue them, in your mouth, those kind of things. And I was just stunned at how tight these felt. It wasn't painful in the least. It was just my acknowledgement. And again, I'm real thankful that I didn't have a lot of fear going into it because so many folks we see on the Smile Maker page share their anxiety and their fear. And so often that's based on their dental history, just like me. Most folks my age and older, we've learned enough. And I tell people, uh, I'm a cynic at heart. And so if it sounds too good to be true, I'll just wait for the brick to hit me and acknowledge I was right. And here I am 4.5 years later, not been hit by a brick. Best decision I ever made dentally. So So that's what I know all of us go through, especially those of us elderly. We go through that issue. And I would just love to give everybody a big hug and say, you got this. Not a
Yeah,
problem.
absolutely. So going through, the surgery, the next day you got your new teeth. Now there's kind of this recovery stage. Did you ever feel at any point, like during this whole process, like, oh, I don't think I can handle this, or this is too much? Like, how was it physically for you?
I feel blessed. I didn't have pain at all. I had some discomfort, as I mentioned. My new teeth were very tight, and what I realized is that's the way they're supposed to be. And so, um, I think a lot of us who are fearful, that becomes our basis for how we're gonna process through things. Now, again, I can't promise anybody, because 'cause I'm no doctor, that they're not gonna have some pain. We all address that differently. I'm just saying I'm the biggest wimp I know, and I didn't feel it. And so if you feel some concern, what I know about Nubia is you call your Nubia staff and you say, "Here's what's going on. Can you explain this to me?" And they will do that. Um, a lot of pain is right up here in my head, and I know it's that way for folks. And again, especially as we get older, because we have a lifetime of knowing what happens and how it feels when you go to a dentist.
Right. So you're saying, even at your age that you were, you didn't, it wasn't this big deal. You kind of let the team take care of it. You got through it. It's not that big of a deal. Is that basically what you're saying?
Yeah. And again, that was my approach. And what I would love to do after being around Nuvia for this long is so many people, my opinion, create anxiety and havoc for what they're about to step into. And again, I think that's the human condition. Um, if you've had a lot of bad teeth and bad teeth experiences, you know how that's going to feel. And that takes over any notion of trust. And that's a challenge. And I think Nubia is great facing that challenge.
Well, I know one of the other reasons that you chose Nuvia was because you would be getting your permanent teeth in 24 hours the very next day. And you said that did happen. But I am curious, why was that quick turnaround such a big deal to you? I know time is precious, especially as we get older. So can you kind of talk about why?
Oh, sure. Because I had just come from a new dentist who said after she examined my teeth that it was going to take a year and a half, multi visits, multi dental work to get my teeth better. And at least at that point, I knew my teeth were terrible, and having them all removed at one time was going to be more a blessing than a curse. She had her way of doing things, and I don't dislike that person for saying that. That's the mentality that I realized happens in the dental world. We'll be glad to take care of everything you got, and it's gonna take so long. And, oh, by the way, we had to get to pay more because we had more issues come up than we knew at first. And so here I am 4.5 years ago, in 24 hours, um, I don't have any teeth problems anymore. And if I had gone with the dentist, who I believe was sincere and doing what she thought was correct, I wouldn't have even started my stuff with her probably at that point.
Wow. Wow. Well, 4 years later, like you said, I want to touch on another concern that we do get from people is if I'm getting to this age, 70s, 80s, it might not even be worth it. Will I even be able to enjoy the benefits long enough, or that cost won't really pay off? So, again, 4 years, what would you say to that?
I I would say unless you're more of somebody than you really are, meaning God, that you know our future. I had no clue. Now, one day I'm gonna die, and I don't fear that. It's just gonna happen as we get older. When we start using that as our buffer for making decisions, I think that's tragic because in the last 4.5 years, I have not had 1 ounce of the same problems I was having before. Everything about my health has changed. And the only way I know that is I walked through this with Nuvia, and the infections that were uh, in my body almost continually don't exist anymore because they were in my teeth. And I think that's a difficult thing to really comprehend. And again, I'm just talking as me being my old man. The older I get, the less I care to um, believe somebody who's trying to do something for me. That's just part of aging, and that's why when I see that, those are people I just want to go give a big hug to and say, "Walk this journey; it's well worth it."
Absolutely. Well, since you did get your teeth 24 hours after surgery, when did you start noticing maybe the differences in your quality of life that you're mentioning?
What happened for me was my focus was I had these new teeth. Now I had a mouthful of teeth. They were just broken and crooked, and my teeth were gray, dark gray from some type of periodontal disease, I think I've been told. All of a sudden, I look in the mirror and I've got these beautiful white teeth, and I'm thinking I had gotten to the point where I seldom brushed my teeth. Well, my first day in front of a mirror with these, I put toothpaste on my toothbrush, look in the mirror. I'm just stunned at how great these teeth look. Now, this mug I've had forever, so I wasn't impressed about that, but it was these teeth were gorgeous. And so I'm brushing my teeth and looking at them, and I'm finding inside what I think is joy. And it was something I hadn't felt for decades around my smile or my teeth. And so, um, I took 3 days off from work, and, I was a therapist at the time, so talking was important to me. I spent my 12-hour shift talking to people, and other than a little bit of a lisp, I didn't have any issues. My brain took care of the new teeth without me having to focus on that. Um, and it took me, I think, a couple of weeks for all that to happen. One thing I noticed with my new teeth was because they came together, I'm gonna make a sound here. I love that sound 4.5 years later. If I would have tried to do that with my old teeth, I would have risked cracking them because they were so brittle. And so every now and then, I'll just sit around doing nothing and, "Oh, how cool." And so it just brings back that flood of joy, and I'm thinking, "How cool is that?" So those are things that I look at, and I just hope for people my age and older, as well as the younger folks, that you can just walk through this with what I call courage. Um, and and I didn't swell up bad, and I had no bruising at all. And so if you have bruising, if you have swelling initially, I tell people those are badges of courage and honor to walk through that because they go away and what you've got's a beautiful set of teeth. And so it's just a matter of I call them mind games, that we play with ourselves. When I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s, I'd go out and do something and hurt myself and wouldn't think twice about it because that's just what you do. At my age, I can't imagine very many instances where I would say, well, I'm just going to go out and do A, knowing I'm going to be in significant pain from doing it. Uh, I'm not doing that. I
Yeah.
don't run marathons anymore. I don't climb and jump out of trees. I had enough sense, though, to trust Nuvia with what they said. And if it was 10 times more painful, I'd do it again tomorrow because that pain absolutely goes away. And again, you're stuck with a beautiful set of teeth. Not a bad option.
Wow. I love the way you put that, Duncan. And it sounds like too, like a lot of these benefits you've noticed after the fact, some of them are like little things, like little things I didn't even think about. You're enjoying brushing your teeth. Like who would have thought you'd be enjoying something so small as that? But I think these little things, like you said, bring so much joy that they are big things, right? And that's
Absolutely.
kind of what it sounds like. And I know earlier you mentioned your health previous to getting this done, you're kind of having some issues going on. Can you kinda talk about maybe some changes you've seen in that after the fact as well?
Sure, sure. As I said, some of the things I was struggling with was because my teeth were just really constantly infected, that infection was traveling to different parts of my body. And on 3 different occasions, I was my skin was breaking out so badly that I went to the emergency room because it didn't make sense. That was the infections that were just catching on to parts of my body. And again, at the time, we didn't understand that connection at all, and I don't know specifically, but when I have my primary care doctor tell me that's something a lot of people are experiencing these days, again, I'm just a blessed man and thankful because, if I hadn't been moving toward getting these, I would have spent more time having the same kinds of infections. And, uh, and so I'm real thankful that Nubia showed up, or that I showed up to Nubia.
Yeah, yeah. So 4 years later, you haven't experienced any of what you had.
None, none.
Wow.
And
Wow, wow,
and
wow.
every time I look in a mirror, again, the mug is what it is, I've been this way for a long time, but when my mouth opens, it just brings joy to me, and I'm thinking, "How weird a transaction that is." And so, if you're one of those folks that has had your teeth removed or broken or whatever the case may be, they're just so bad that you don't open your mouth and show it for anybody. I'm telling you, what a gift this is. And so it's easy to talk ourselves out of it for numerous reasons, as I've already mentioned. The reality is, my life is so much better now than it was before. And if I hadn't taken the steps toward Nuvia, that wouldn't be my situation. So I'm more than thankful.
I am so, so glad you took those steps, Duncan, and you're here today. 4 years later, sounds like it was worth it to
Oh,
you. I
100%.
I am curious if people are, wondering what is the first step I take or how much does something like this cost? Where should they look to, find more information about that?
There's a cost guide right down here that you can get, and Nuvia sends that to you and explains the process financially. And I'm telling you, from my end, it was worth every penny, and I do it twice. I had no idea what my costs were gonna be with the dentist that told me a year and a half. I just know that it wouldn't have stopped in a year and a half. It would have continued. And so I look at this and think, what a fortunate decision that was. And I'd give every penny again if need be.
Amazing. Well, Duncan, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your story. You've shown that age doesn't have to hold you back and that you're never too late to look into your options. So thank you. Thank you again.
Oh, you're more than welcome. And I sure hope if you're watching this, you'll take that step forward because it's worth it.
Absolutely. Well, for those watching, until next time,
Keep smiling.